With the launch of the new series Brother colour cartridges, yellow, magenta, cyan and black Brother TN-258XLs, it's wise to note some points to maximise the customer satisfaction. Just down in the warehouse, and I just thought I'd run through the Brother 258, the colour cartridges, the new colour cartridges that came out roughly at the same time as the 2530, the mono series. Both of these ones, as you know, it's the first time that Brother's put serial numbers on the chips, and there's some important things to know. So the 2530, there's nothing that you need to think about when you're selling those cartridges, because our cartridges, the chip that's on the cartridge has multiple serial numbers on it, and the customer can put a cartridge in if by random chance that the printer has had the same serial number before as the cartridge that they've just installed. All the customer has to do is turn the printer off, turn it back on again, and the chip will automatically select to a different serial number and they'll be up and printing. So the important thing on all of these cartridges, whether it's the 2530 or more importantly at the moment on the 258 series, is that you cannot put the same serial number into a printer more than two times in a row. So you can't put a version 1 chip in followed by another version 1. It has to be version 1 followed by a version 2 or a version 3. Anything different from whatever you previously had in the printer. So the difference with the colour cartridges at the moment, the chips on the colour cartridges, is the technology has not been able to put more than one serial number on a chip at a time at the moment. They're working on making it similar to the 2530, where it's got more than one choice of serial numbers, where you can just turn the printer on and off, and it selects a different serial number from the chip, or the chip ID effectively changes. On the 258s, they've got one serial number. So if the customer has put the same serial number in on the new cartridge is the same as the last one, the printer will reject it. So on the bottom of every box, you'll see, we're over here, on the bottom of every box, we've got a version on there. So these are sort of Gen 2 chips, but this is 1V1. Then there's another one with 2V1 and 3V1. So it's basically 3 versions of that chip. So it's important that, let's say you sell a magenta to a customer, you sell a cartridge to them, and it's Mr. Jones, you sell a magenta 258 to. It's important that you record the version number that you've sold. So in this case, Mr. Jones has bought using a version 1V1 magenta. Next time Mr. Jones comes in to buy a magenta from you, you know not to sell him another version 1. You would sell him a version 2 or a version 3. He'll install that and have no issues at all. So just make sure you're not putting 2 in a time. So if you're selling a set, my recommendation would be to try to sell a set of all the same number. It makes it easy to track. So they're all version 1, version 2 or version 3 for Mr. Jones. When he comes in again, you don't have to remember the black was a version 1, the magenta was a version 3. They're all version 1, and you want to now sell him a version 2 or a version 3, and he's not going to have any issues on installing that cartridge. So that's an important thing to track. You must track the serial numbers, and by doing so, you're offering a service as a cartridge expert that other people can't do. Remember, all your competitors selling online, all your competitors in other retail places probably won't be tracking numbers, and they'll just be hoping for the best. You as a professional cartridge reseller, it's easy for you to track that, and it's a way of building your database, but also track the cartridge so the customer doesn't have any problems in buying your cartridges. Got one other point that we've discovered in our local testing, and this is basically down to Pete Earl in New Zealand, or Pete and his team in New Zealand at Parts Overnight. What we've discovered is if you install a cartridge, and let's just say in this case the customer's putting in a version 2 cyan. They install this cartridge in the printer, and let's say the chip doesn't make perfect contact, doesn't line up properly. You put it in, and maybe the printer has recognised that cartridge, and it starts printing, but maybe the chip has not fully aligned with the pins. If the pins have made contact enough to get the ID of the cartridge, in this case version 2 cyan, and it records that, and if that connection is lost, so either the pins haven't made good contact with the chip, or something else happens where the customer pulls that cartridge out and puts it back in again for whatever reason, effectively what's going to happen is the driver is going to think, the last cartridge I had in was a version 2. That was the last cartridge I had. You put this cartridge back in again, and it's going to say, well, hang on, I've just had a version 2. You're now installing another version 2. And so the result will be the printer rejects the cartridge, even though it might not be fully used. So it's important to know that if the customer pulls that cartridge out for any reason, or the contact's not made in a proper way, there's a chance of rejection if the customer does that sort of thing. And in that case, really at the moment, you need to swap the cartridge out to another chip, either swap the chip out or swap the cartridge out to another serial number, so the printer will accept it. So just to clear up any other, maybe another question is, so this series here of 258s, so we're talking the black, cyan, and yellow, there is like a V1, a V2, a V3 in this series here. So each shipment we get, the factory will be able to develop or release more serial numbers. So it's not that we're just stuck with the 3. Down the track there'll be probably V2, V3, V4 chips, again with 1, 2, 3 if they follow the same path as the inkjets, and so there'll be multiple ones. And the thing is that it may be down the track, let's say Mr. Jones, use him as an example again, you've sold a V1 chip to him. Remember that you can't use that 2 of them in a row, but you could use a 2 or a 3. Later, maybe a few months down the track, he comes in again and he's used something different. You can always go back to another V1. It's not like it remembers V1 for the rest of its life. It's just that you can't use 2 V1s in a row or V2s in a row. So down the track, they'll release more numbers. So there'll be maybe a 1 V2, a 2 V2, a V3, a V4, and then using any of those, you could still go back to a 1 V1, again, as long as it's just something different in a row. So down the track, there'll be more and more numbers released. And then also, hopefully down the track, they will have the function where it has more than one number on the chip at a time. So if there is any disconnection issues or anything like that, the chip can automatically select a new identity.
Green, the color of true